This is the Zone Football League.
Welcome back to another episode of the Zone In podcast, where we talk everything Zone Football League across Newcastle. As always, I'm Mason, and by my side today is Wilso. How have you been, Wilso?
Good, mate. It's a good weekend. Big weekend of football.
Yeah, definitely.
It's at the pointy end of the season, and we're right at the end of it now. So,
Yep.
just a lot of games to get through. Well, three main games to get through in today's podcast with some interesting results. And, yeah.
For sure. And yeah, as you're saying, only 3 games being played, 1 from each division. The final 2 competing for that last spot in the grand final. As we know, the coincidentally all premiers won their games last week, midweek, so they got the weekend off, rest and prepare for the grand finals coming up. But we'll start with Zone League 1, which was the match of the round, seeing Katara South hosting the University of Newcastle at Nesbitt Park. Katara South pinching a 2-2 win in that game, and Cooper Toby opening it up quite early with a nice teamwork goal, I guess. Looped in free kick there, headed it from the back stick right into the path of Cooper Toby just to tap it in. But yeah, in the 3rd minute.
Yeah, the worst possible start, really,
yeah.
for the students. You know, they've had a big week, playing on the weekend, and then a great win midweek. And then, to go down so early. It was a sort of a silly foul.
Yeah.
Sort of around just inside their own half, and really just put it to the back post. Got some numbers in there, and it just fell for Cooper Toby, basically on the line. And he couldn't really miss, and he didn't, of course. And it was just the perfect start for Katara. But yeah, the students would have been thinking, if they were buoyed by the week, and then they would have thought, oh, wow, we got to start all over again. So, yeah, it wasn't the start they looked for, but they crept themselves back into the game, and they were looking quite good. And then Zachary Fiver, he pretty much made it of his own, didn't he? He just sort of scrambled, and the ball got played in a little bit in behind, and he just seemed to get in the running and get into the right line and got across his man, and then it was a really good finish in the bottom corner.
Definitely, it was like just bouncing around, wasn't the best of through balls, and he kind of just caught it in his stride, got out the back, and then just poked it home.
Just enthusiasm and the willingness to want to get to the ball, and I think the students' defender was just a bit blasé, and it was bobbling about as well, and he did get a little bit of luck, but it was just that willingness and that desire to make something to happen for himself, and he was rewarded with it. But the finish was good as well. He still had a lot of work to do, and he placed it in the bottom corner, and he celebrated over with the fans. It was a great way to to go 2-0 up, and then students would have been really deflated.
Yeah, and when we did preview this, Cam and I, in the last episode last week, we said about like the Uni coming off a great win, beating the Suns. On the flip side, Katara with a heavy loss, 6-2 against Croatia. So it could have been down to either team, but I think purely the fact of Katara getting that advantage with an early goal, I think may have rattled the Uni, and it's really hard to come back from that.
And I think, and there's not taking anything away from Croatia, Katara South did have a few players out. But that can be the difference. A couple of players here or there in this league, if they're not there, it does make a pretty big difference. And that scoreline got away, and it was a bit worrying to see that scoreline. But the students had to play midweek, and it was a great win. It was a massive win over the Suns. I just think the fact that they got themselves back to Nelly full strength, that would have really given them the confidence to go into that game, and they started it so well, and they've strangled them in that first half with a second goal, and obviously University stayed in it, and made chances of their own, but it was in the end it was a very deserved win.
Yeah, 100%. And you've got to think now with Katara going into this game for the grand final after this win, gaining back the troops and stuff, you've got to imagine they'll be way more confident, and hopefully for a spectator's point of view, at the very least, that it's a closer affair. But the Harry Snitzel man of the match, you could hear in Cameron's voice, he was reveling in the fact that he wholly and solely had the decision to himself on the weekend. But he did go with, surprisingly, not a goal scorer, which seems to be the trend recently, but he did pick out Katara's number 5, Aiden Mayer. Obviously, great game, great performance. Just the effort, you could see the effort out there.
Yeah, and that's semi-final football, or that was a preliminary final football. Just because the goal scorer, they were important goals, but I thought Mayer, he really had himself everywhere, and it was a worthy recipient of the Harry Snitzel's Player of the Match, and I think Katara, they'll get so much out of that game, but they'll also get a lot out of the Croatia game when they when they were obviously humbled 6-2. But the good coaches know how to work from that, and he'll have them better organised. He's going to need to. They're going to have to be organised. They're going to have to come up with a plan, and that's just showing respect, and respect is deserved from Croatia. They've taken all before them this year, so you can't be too arrogant or blasé thinking you're just going to go in there and match them. There is way too much class through that team, and speed and experience. So they're going to have to come up with a plan, and they're going to have to work on it throughout the week, and they've all got to be in good nick. They've got to be fresh. Croatia on the other side, and we'll talk about this later. Well, they've had to sit there. They've haven't played a lot of football in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but it's going to be difficult, but they can only win, and they did on the weekend. That's what they needed to do, and they're there.
Yeah, and to stand like the Qatar, relatively fresh, young, new team kind of thing, to stand up in these finals moments. I'm sure the club and everyone involved would be proud of that in itself. Just getting to the grand final, as I'm fairly certain they haven't been in one for the most recent years. So I'm sure they'll be excited about that, the opportunity and everything. Just really being in that position.
They'll be soaking it up now. The pressure is getting in. Once you're there, you can enjoy it and enjoy the moment, and anything can happen in a grand final.
100%.
Favourites have beaten before, and just a note for Newcastle University. I thought they had a great season, and
amazing season.
Some really good players to come out of that team, and they'll be one to watch for next year.
100%, definitely. As we look then now to Zone League 2, where Bulwarra had their rematch match against North United Wolves, the Maitland derby that we did see from the weekend prior. The result slightly different though, 2-0 in the way of the Wolves. I'm sure both teams probably very relieved it didn't go to 120 and go to penalties again, but obviously Bulwarra disappointed with their result, especially after a 3-1 loss to the Crabs earlier in the week. We didn't get your perspective on that game, but your mate Daniel McBreen as well. Just to
I think just to rehash that game, Bulwarra were superb first half. It was a terrific performance. One of the better performances I've seen in any game this season. Their press, their counter press, their quality on the ball, everything was they completely outplayed the Crabs leading into halftime. Not to say they should have been any further than 1-0 ahead. They really didn't create a lot of chances, but they really did play some terrific football. And they really deserve their lead. And if anything, halftime was probably the worst thing for them. But it's 2 games ago, and we don't want to go too far into it. But like the Crabs, just Wayne Bailey I went into the sheds after the game, and Bales gave them a real serve, and they just lifted, and McBreen scores 2 quality goals, and the rest is history.
Yeah, for sure.
And really leading into this, North United Wolves game. It had to have taken something out of them. They were so good in the first half, and they were just outgunned in the second half, and they were physically gone, and it must have had some wear and tear mentally and physically. It was a great effort from Bulwarra, but North United, that's a good fight back from losing that the qualifying quarterfinal.
Yeah.
A week or two ago, and then having to go through the midweek and work their way back in, and
knocking off your favourite Min
Min
Mai
Mai
as well.
which is a really good run from Min Mai.
Yeah.
So their form's good, and it's without McBreen, because McBreen brought them back into that game. I don't want to say it too much, but he was the shining light in the first half. But their midfield really come into it. But Macca, just 2 quality goals. Now, they're not going to have that in the grand final.
Yes.
And someone will come in, of course.
Yep.
But those 2 goals were another level of class above.
Yep.
And that's what he offers. He offers that. So that's going to, it's going to bring it back a little bit further. And, it's going to be an interesting, this one. Winning form from the Wolves, obviously. Yeah.
Well, on this day for the Bulwark game, getting those 2 goals, Alex Merkel, always in and around there. You can just tell the way he plays and the way he conducts himself. Bit of a leader, leading man. Lachlan Gunn as well, picking up the second goal and also the man of the match for that one. But you still got to imagine, like, in a 2-0 win would have been quite a back and forth, a tough slog, still coming up against local rivals and everything. There'd be this thoughts of that last spot for the grand final, but also more. Both
sides are desperate, and take away the fact that it's a derby, but it's just a final to get into a grand final. So they were both throwing everything they had at each other. They were both fatigued, but they're just giving one last effort, the willingness to keep going, and North United were just too good on the day. And worthy, to go through to give themselves a chance at the grand final title.
That's it. And lastly, now looking at the Zone League 3 preliminary final here, another close and tough game, but Charlestown coming out on top in a 2-1 victory over Merewether United. Charlestown, special shout out to them, being the only team coming into 5th, just sneaking into the finals, being in a grand final. Zone League we'll touch on later, but Zone League 1 you've got first versus third. Zone League 2 you've got first versus second. The disparity in this grand final, first versus 5th, is definitely something to mention. But on this day, Charlestown against Merewether United. Felix Pritchard coming in for Charlestown, missing a fair few games throughout the season, but just showing the quality that he has. Scoring Charlestown's both goals. And later in the second half, Liam Shattuck for Merewether, just bringing Merewether back into the game, but unfortunately just wasn't enough for the Reds.
Yeah, both teams can be very proud of their season. I think Merewether United, they were a little bit up and down early on in the season. They've had really good runs and then they've dropped off, but they were worthy finalists. It could have went either way this game. And I think last week you were really concerned with Charlestown that they might get beaten midweek. Not patting myself on the back, but I thought Charlestown would win midweek. I thought probably Merewether might win this one, but Charlestown were just working their way. They had to fight hard to even get into 5th. So
exactly,
that form and that mentality, they've taken that through, and every game is like obviously they're last. If they lose, they're out, and they've played it that way. Now, have they done it all in these last 4 or 5 games? Probably. It usually works that way. But they've got some really good players in that group, and they just were slow to start the season, and it doesn't surprise me they made the semi-finals. And if there's a real upset opportunity, I think it's this one, and because Greta can be rocks and diamonds, like when they're good, no one will touch them. But they've had another week off. Charlestown have just kept on grinding and digging, and their quality players are shining through. And obviously, Pritchard's in good form. You'd be crazy to write them off
for sure. And the only concern would be you said about the grinding through the games. If that's taken a toll on their squad, obviously, coming from 5th, doing the most work, coming up against first in Greta, that had a bit of a time off, did the job against Merewether early in the week, now time off again.
Yeah.
Bit of a David Goliath there.
Yeah. Historically, it doesn't happen very
Yeah.
often. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, there's a chance here because like you said, Greta went straight through.
Yeah.
That'd be probably, might have had a restful week when it comes to. So yes, they're going to be in better nick physically, probably even mentally. But like they can't concede Charlestown's what they've done. Continual just winning, last chance, win. So.
Well, and they've all been meaningful wins. They knock off fourth. They then go to knock off Curry, who finished second, and now Merriweather ahead of them in third place. On the devil's advocate, they'd be hoping none of those games were their grand final. And they still have something in the locker for Friday night.
They can put that into their heads, but every game has been a grand final for them.
Yeah.
Like you said, if it hasn't taken too much of a toll, it's probably more mentally. Physically, they'll just get through it because they're on adrenaline. They'd be just flying and they'd be pumped up at training and they'd be probably enjoyed some beverages on the weekend. They're if they don't think too far ahead, and just go, okay, this is another game we've got to take off the list. That's difficult to do. They're really difficult to do. It'll be in their heads. They're in a grand final now, and sometimes it can blow everything away. So
exactly,
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, well, as we do talk about that, they don't have long for a turnaround, as Zone League 3 Grand Final is this Friday night at Turner Park, Cessnock. Obviously, the main game there is first grade Greta versus Charlestown. There is the reserve grade Zone League 3 game on before that, a 6 o'clock kickoff at Turner Park, which sees Charlestown versus Merriweather in reserve grade. So I was waiting, biting my tongue there, but the fact that Charlestown have both teams there, whether they all go up together, first grade support reserve grade stay back and support first grade, I definitely see that if I'm a club as an advantage, having lots of, especially being such an away game up in the valley, you'd think Greta probably more of a home advantage there, being closer to Cessnock, but Charlestown should, and I would imagine will, have that sideline, that 12th man support kind of thing to maybe push them through.
And especially if, the reserve grade win as well. They'll be very vocal and loud and, be on the cans, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, and even if they don't, they're going to be on the can. So they're going to be vocal. The previous scores are a worry, obviously. They've copped, 4 in each game. But I think Charlestown are a much better side than what they've been, for these last 5 or 6 weeks. They've just gone to the level. Zach Lloyd, we all know what he can do. He was consistent when the team wasn't being consistent.
Exactly. I think Charlestown's main issue throughout the season, which could be seen from near or far, was just their issue in scoring the goals. If they did when they were getting wins, it was only by 1 goal, or the game would be 2-1 or something like that. So, as you say, looking at the previous results against Greta, only getting the 1 goal in both those games, but maybe that being down to Felix being missing for parts of the season. Now he's back, he's in goal scoring form. If any time, why wouldn't it be now that they can start putting goals on? Greta as well, we've seen, as you mentioned as well, Rocks and Diamonds can be. They've obviously done great in the whole, winning the minor premiers, getting into the grand final. But definitely better goal scorers. Paul Connell up top for Greta, banging in a dozen plus goals. They've also got Thomas German, I'm going to say. He's been quite consistent for them in the midfield and up top as well. So definitely lots of players to look out for between these two teams, and I'm sure I'm pretty sure Cameron will be at all these games commentating, so he'll have his book of notes out, so he'll be able to identify lots of players as well.
and obviously with Charlestown getting Felix Pritchard back, but I think Chester Wade and Zach Lloyd, I think you got to go old school in the grand final. You got to win that midfield battle and get in there and realise it's not all going to be pretty.
That's where it will be one and be the difference between these two teams, that midfield.
I think it has to be, especially if you're a team like Charlestown who aren't scoring loads of goals. Their goals have got to come from constructed play, and but they also need to defend really well, and they've got to defend from the front, and they've got to make sure things are happening in midfield when it comes to defensive duties. And it'll be interesting to see how Chester Wade. He's been good for them this year as well. It'll be a good one. As long as Charlestown stay in it early, and they'll come up with a plan. That one could go either way. Greeter, when you look at it, they should win the game. But again, it doesn't mean anything on grand final day.
And from a sideline perspective, I'm sure everyone loves to see goals, and doesn't matter which game it is. But you'd ideally want it to still be an even game with a fair few goals and not just a blowout one way.
I don't think it will be. I think Charlestown will be organised, and I don't think there'll be as many goals. I think it'll be a tighter affair than their two clashes throughout the season. Yeah.
Definitely. So reminder for that one, Friday night, the 26th of September, 8 o'clock kickoff at Turner Park, Cessnock. Greater Branxton versus Charlestown for the Zone League 3 2025 Grand Final. As we now look...
Just a note on that, I was working up near Turner Park and it looks in great nick. So working at the high school, and it looks amazing.
They have said that they've been working to get it in good nick, which will be good to see under the bright lights on a Friday night. Just wanted to take a minute to thank all of our great sponsors of the Zone In podcast. We have Deploy Football, the leading developers and manufacturers of performance sporting solutions, not only just including our awesome balls, and also sportswear with all of our grassroots clubs in helping them design and produce amazing apparel. One of our other major sponsors, Solved Marketing. If you want your problems solved are the ones to go with. Helping businesses, brands solve complex challenges with ingenuity and creative solutions. Solved Marketing is our go-to agency for all of our marketing needs, and we cannot recommend them enough. And finally, Harry Schnitzel Joint. You guys know every week, Man of the Match is presented with the Harry Schnitzel Award. Definitely go check Harry Schnitzel out. And we know that all the Man of the Match recipients have been so excited to get their Harry Schnitzel Man of the Match Award and get down to Harry. We now turn our attention to Saturday, 27th of September. Sees us out at Lyle Carr Oval again. Seems to be Crowders Bay's new donor home at the moment. But this one being hosted by Charlestown Azzurri there for the day for the Zone League 2 Grand Finals. Starting the day in third grade with Crowders Bay versus Merriweather Advance. That one being at 10 o'clock. Midday mark, we see reserve grade, again, Crowders Bay taking on North United Wolves, which is then also reflected in the highlight match of the day, first grade at 3 p.m. kickoff, Crowders Bay versus North United Wolves. I can't remember a recent season where one club has had all three teams in the grand final, and we obviously speak about Crowders Bay, but we're always referring to their first grade. But the system they have at the club must be great, and that starts obviously with Wayne, but to have three teams in grand finals would be great feeling for them.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. Obviously, we are talking about the top side, but it doesn't work unless you've got players that are fighting for spots and doing well. And obviously, the reserves are doing well, and then you've got the conference. But that'll also be a big day because they'll all be there. They'll be hoping to win all three grades. And North United are in two grades as well. So it should be a bumper crowd there. And, it's again, like we spoke about earlier, it really could go either way. Both their games have been really tight. North United have done it the hard way, and they've had to really struggle to get in, play midweek. Crowders Bay, they should win, but again, shorter favourites have been beaten. So
definitely North's only losing to the Crabs. Only being beaten by the Crabs. North's coming second in the league. So if you've got to imagine if there's any team to compete against them in this type of a game, it would be Wolves. Their previous results throughout the year. Earlier in the season, Crabs getting a 3-2 win there, and the more recent game being a 1-1 draw, Wolves being one of two teams to have taken points off the Crabs this year, that being the first game after the Crabs were crowned premiers, if you remember us touching on that one. But yeah, Wolves would have to be thinking about that in the back of their mind. Such a close game early in the season, grabbing those 2 points off the Crabs after being crowned premiers. There's still positives in the air around this, and on the flip side, Crowders Bay having to be thinking, well, we went down early during the week to Bulwarra. Our results against Wolves have been tight previously, so it's definitely not time to switch off.
I think the midweek game last week will show that there'll be no complacency. I think they went into that game a little bit complacent. I went into the sheds after the game, and they were out on their feet. They worked so hard in that second half, and they were outplayed in the first half. But I think that will help them. The fact they've had to really dig deep to make that grand final, because they know North United's form's good against them as well. So I don't think there's any chance whatsoever that we're going to see a first half like we did against Bulwarra in the grand final. I think they're going to come out flying. They won't have McBreen, which is a massive loss.
You mentioned that, missing McBreen. So then if you think about that, take away McBreen's 2 goals from the midweek.
Well, he brought him back
tighter.
into the game.
Yeah.
He brought him back into the game. And it happened so quickly after half time that they didn't have time to recover. So that class, and it is still class, the goals were of a high standard, that's not there. So, yes, there'll be someone in to replace him, and there's still quality there. But what I was more impressed with, I was very impressed with the goals, but it was the first half. The Crabs were completely dominated in midfield. They were just completely outplayed. They didn't really work well off Bulwarra's press. They jumped off the ball. They played long, and that's successful because McBreen can make stuff at the back post. But the second half, and I spoke about it at halftime with Cam, what they needed to do. They needed to get on the ball again and be brave and be confident, and they did. And Bryant and Alexander Grant, they went from being completely outshone to being dominant. They were working in tandem, side to side. They were working forward as well, almost in a diamond occasionally, where one would go and one would press and underneath. But with the ball, they were really composed, and that was the difference as well. And I think they're going to need that type of energy against what's a very good North United midfield as well.
And you touch on Bryant and Grant there, but Callum Garbett at the back for the Crabs, he's going to have his hands full with Tobias King-Bell as well, bagging lots of goals for Wolves, being their leading man. But then you've also got Lachlan Gunn and Kieran Delaney backing him up as well. So it obviously, we talk about the Crabs' front line, their midfield, but you got to think about the backs as well, because, from what I have seen from Wolves, they will just throw it to you the whole game and just push. So whether they break down the Crabs' backline or not, I guess we'll be there to see.
Yeah, to be fair, Bulwarra were terrific. They were definitely terrific through the back 2/3, and they were still good in the front third. But the reason why they didn't score no more goals, was that Garbett did organise his defence pretty well, and his experience. He has a really good diagonal. He to get them out of trouble when they need to. yeah, he defended well. He organises his group. If he's in the line and he has to come out because someone's dropped into a pocket, he's out and he's defending and he's brave and he's quick and he's still, he's young and he leads his defence well. I think they'll be okay, but this is another step up again. Like you said, Tobias King-Bell has been in terrific form. You got Lachlan Gunn scoring goals, Kieran Delaney from midfield, and that name sounds really familiar. I'd like to know if he played at Edgeworth a long time ago. I'll know, I guess, when I see him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could go either way. Again, it's hard to think that we could be thinking that way after they've taken all before them, Crowders Bay. But I think Bales will just have them really raring to go. I just think they were a little bit complacent last week, and they have no room to be again because they don't have that X factor. To get them out of trouble.
Exactly, and not to discredit or downplay either of the other two games on this weekend, but I would be saying that this would be my pick to be the closest of the three games. So yeah, definitely we'll have to wait and see. Reminder again, Saturday 27th of September, 3:00 kickoff at Lyle Carr Oval sees Crowders Bay First Grade coming up against North United Wolves. Finally, to wrap out the grand final weekend, and sees us with Zone League 1. Across these three games in the first, reserve and third grade, there are 6 different teams, which is interesting. I found it interesting to see that no team the same across each 3 grades, with Dudley and Uni facing off in third grade to start the day, followed by Newcastle Suns versus Mayfield United Seniors in reserve grade, and finishing off the day, finishing off the weekend as well, 3:00 seeing Katara face off against Newcastle Croatia.
Yeah, well, 3 big games, and obviously Newcastle, Croatia versus Katara South. We'll talk about first. It's basically the last game of the season again, like it was last year. All other football's basically done, really. All the NPL and New FM1 or Northern League 1, sorry. They're all done. So it's the highlighted game right at the end. It's going to be a bumper crowd there. This is it's a big one. Croatia. How can you go past them? They've just got,
exactly.
Like if Calburn is on his game, you've got Jake McGuinness who scored plenty of goals. And the list goes on and on and on with that group. Really well coached by the big pops, passionate, big crowd behind them. But they might have a big crowd, but I think probably the rest will be going for Katara South. And I mean, and
probably,
that happens.
That's in an underdog story,
in an underdog story,
as well.
And that's what happens. They'll be all there hoping for Croatia to fail because that's what Aussie people do, really. Then that's taking nothing away from Croatia.
Not at all.
The respect that people have, but they'll be all gunning for an upset.
Yeah.
And I think that will make for more of a, more atmosphere and, and it really could help Katara South knowing that they've got a bit more support. They're going to have to get everything right. They're going to have to defend well. They're going to have to counter press. They're going to have to do everything. They're going to be really good in front of goal because but if there is one area that they could get them, and that is defensively, they have leaked a few goals, but even then it's their backline's got some super players in it as well. So and players that have played in NPL grand finals and above. So
but still, we talk about the A-list names of Croatia, but you've still got a lot of people would know the names from Katara, the Cooper Jensens, the Zach Pfeiffer, Jack Reed-Jones coming from Olympic mid-season, Cooper Clark, the goalkeeper, been keeping them in lots of games recently in good form himself. So obviously there's a reason Katara are in this grand final.
100%.
And it's easy to say because we're here now, but Qatar are probably the only team. They are the only team left to try and take down this Croatian powerhouse.
Yeah, you're right. And the list of players you just went through have been in terrific form. Jansen is just, he'd have to be 15 to 20 goals this year, isn't he?
Yeah.
He leads the attack really well. Jack Reed-Jones, midfielder who's box to box. They've got the players there, and they've had
I think actually since coming to Katara, they've moved him back a bit deeper.
Yep.
Maybe that being for his quality to lock up that defensive line for Katara.
They'll need it. They'll need it. They'll definitely need that from him. Use his NPL experience. They got to get everything right. They got to come up with a plan, and I'm sure they will. They're going to have to respect what Croatia can do, especially with their speed in wide areas and.
And it's not obviously their most recent matchup against each other we spoke about was that 6-2 during the midweek, but it's not all doom and gloom as their first meeting at the start of the season. Qatar actually getting the win 3-1 over Croatia, and the latter game then in the season just a 1-0 win to Croatia. So Qatar, obviously, if they can reflect back on that first game, it is possible. It's
100%.
It's not impossible.
I think out of all the other teams in the league, obviously Suns, if they were firing, I think this is the team that can do something to them if they get it right on the day. Now, if Croatia, obviously, in their last meeting, when they're on song, nothing's going to stop
It's hard
them.
to beat.
So they're going to have to get on the front foot. They can't just defend. They've got to get the ball into wide areas and get crosses in and get behind their defenders, make them work, and limit the ball, going forward to the powerhouse players. And obviously Cal Burns should just, he should walk around this pitch and just, combine with anyone he really likes. He is a decent player. So he's the focus. But there's so many others in that group they've got to take care of. But I think they've got to get on the front foot, but not without forgetting about what they need to do defensively. The coach has got to come up with that, and he's got to come up with a plan. And if he gets it right, well, he'll be a hero.
Definitely, and you touch on Cal Burns specifically as a player to watch. Obviously, not part of the Croatia squad for the opening game, and then the end of the season game that saw us out at Pasadena. He was rested for that one, so we actually haven't seen Cal Burn and what he can do on the cameras. So, not to say he's not used to being on the camera. Obviously, he's experienced in higher divisions, but it'll be good to actually see what he can do. He should light it up. He's in an age bracket where he should light it up through his experience. He's still young and he's played at a good level and is a quality player. So he's obviously the one to watch. And if you're looking at a player that you're going to go and have a look at, he's the one. But they might throw someone on him and make it really difficult for him. Follow him around. If he goes over to the dugout, follow him over there as well. I don't know. Who knows? That's up to the coach. And they're going to have to look after a couple of players. There's no doubt about it. But they can't forget what they can do going forward with Jansen and obviously Jack Reed-Jones from deep. So, I think the longer the game goes on, the better for Qatar South. You could sit here and go, this is going to be tight, and Qatar South could win this one, but it could get ugly as well. Like that's how good Croatia can be. So definitely, I think I did forget to mention as well when I introduced this game, this one being played at Darling Street Oval, Olympic running that. They put on a great show for us last year for the grand final, doing it again, and I'm sure this one going to be bigger and better. Obviously, all of these first grade games being broadcast and commentated on Bar TV online, but we still, as always, encourage as many people as possible to get down to these games. They have been spread across each of the zones. Obviously, the Friday night being up in the Valley, Saturday out in the Macquarie region, and the Pinnacle one on Sunday being in the heart of Newcastle. So all quite easily accessible games to get down to. Let's try and make it a great day. Obviously, the Jets and NPL had their All-Stars
Yeah,
game there on the weekend as well. Interesting to hear what the attendance numbers for that was, and
it was around 2,500.
and see if we can hit that for this grand final. We obviously had around 2,000 at the season opening game at Number 2 Sports Ground. Obviously not as fiery of a clash with the Croatians and the Suns as the start, but I think being the end of the season, you say end of football for the year almost, I reckon there'll be a fair few people out and about in the crowd getting that last hit of football for the year.
Definitely. I think the fact there's 3 games on, that's what it should be. It's such a great feeling when there's game after game, and the fact that there's 6 different teams there. Yeah, it's a chance for all clubs to get there and let their hair down, have a few beers if that's what you're into. But cheer on your own teams, but also just get there and enjoy the football, especially in the obviously the first grade grand final, and hopefully there's a really big crowd there. The facility, I can't believe I'm saying this about Hamilton, about Newcastle Olympic, but it's in terrific shape. They took me through a little tour of up the top, and the facilities are they're better than all around town at the moment. But the ground looked in good nick. It's a really good place to watch football from at the moment, and well done to Olympic for getting their facility up to a standard that can host these type of games.
Definitely.
But it's a really good atmosphere. So everyone get down there, and if you can't, just chuck it on the Bar TV.
Chuck it on the Bar TV. That's it. Friday night, Turner Park, Cessnock. Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff at Lalcar Oval. And finally, the big one, Zone League 1 Grand Final, Sunday, 28th, 3 p.m. at Darling Street. But as you say, make a day of it. Third grade kicking off at 10. Get in there early, get the best spot, save it till the big one, and hopefully everyone can enjoy themselves and make it a
really big day.
100%
at all 3 grand finals. Get down there, and
I'm
really looking forward to all 3. And obviously the pinnacle is Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Well, this is what we've been waiting for all year, and now it's finally here, and. The only thing that will come after this is the final podcast episode next week, where we sit down, debrief across all 3 of the grand final games. I'm sure between the 2 of us, Cam, CT, whoever gets on for next week's episode, we'll have a lot to talk about, because I'm sure there's going to be multitudes of action across these 3 games and more for this weekend.
Yeah, and there's always drama and emotion and energy and upsets and tears, and
maybe being the last episode as well, we might be able to speak a little more freely on a few certain things that we may have bit our tongue about during the season. So have to wait and see for that. But what a time.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to the weekend.
We're going to run back any of the cliches.
No, I'm going to save them for
the big dance.
We're going to the big dance. The big dance.
Yeah.
No, we'll save them for the calls on the weekend, I think.
Sounds good. Well, you will get to hear Cameron's voice, your voice, maybe CT, maybe Gareth, whoever it is. They will be calling it live and free on Bar TV. And if you're at the ground, do you encourage signatures or like
course,
autographs and everything? I'm sure Cam always carries Cam always carries around a permanent marker just in case. So if you do see the boys, get them to sign something. It'll make their day.
It'll be worth $0 in years to come.
Yeah, you'll probably actually ruin the hat. But anyway, that's been us for this read of the lead up to the grand finals. We'll see you at the games, and if not, we'll see you next week for the last episode of the podcast. Cheers.
This is the Zone Football League.